Lightning split the sky as Sarah Chen pulled into the circular driveway of her brother's mansion, the gravel crunching beneath her Tesla's tires. The sprawling Victorian home, once a symbol of Marcus's success, now loomed like a shadow against the storm-darkened sky. Moving day wasn't supposed to feel this ominous. "Perfect timing, sis," Marcus called from the covered porch, his familiar smile not quite reaching his eyes. At 42, her elder brother still commanded attention. Tall, distinguished, and impeccably dressed even for packing. But something about him seemed different today, almost fragile. Sarah ducked through the rain into the house, shaking water from her jacket. "I still don't understand the rush to sell," she said, following Marcus into his study. "You loved this place. Diana designed every." She stopped short at the slight flinch in his shoulders at his ex-wife's name. The study was already half-packed, with boxes scattered across the Persian rug like fallen soldiers. Marcus handed her a roll of packing tape. "Just help me with these files, Sarah. Some things are better left in the past." As they worked in silence, broken only by thunder and the squeak of packing tape, Sarah noticed Marcus's usual methodical nature had abandoned him. He was shoving papers into boxes haphazardly, his hands trembling slightly. When he stepped out to take a phone call, Sarah began organizing the chaos he created. That's when she found it, a crimson envelope wedged between two leather-bound ledgers. The paper was expensive, the kind used for wedding invitations or legal documents. Her heart skipped when she saw the rust-colored stains marking the corners. They looked disturbingly like dried blood. Inside, divorce papers dated 2 years ago bore Diana's signature, elegant yet somehow shaky. But it was the photograph beneath that made Sarah's breath catch. Their wedding photo. Marcus and Diana, on the happiest day of their lives, except Diana's face had been burned away with surgical precision, leaving a dark void where her smile should have been. "What are you doing?" Marcus's voice cracked like the thunder outside. Sarah hadn't heard him return. "I found this, and..." She held up the envelope, noting how his face drained of color. "Marcus, what happened with Diana?" "Really? These stains?" He crossed the room in 3 long strides, snatching the envelope from her hands. Without a word, he strode to the fireplace and tossed both envelope and contents into the flames. The fire caught quickly, turning the crimson paper to ash. "Some questions don't need answers, Sarah." His voice was low, dangerous, a tone she'd never heard from him before. "Drop it. For your own good." But as Sarah watched the photograph curl and burn, she caught a glimpse of something else in the background of the image, a face she recognized, someone who shouldn't have been at their wedding at all. Before she could process what she'd seen, the photo dissolved into flames, taking its secrets with it. Sarah's hands trembled as she inserted the dragon key into safety deposit box 447. After escaping the bank, she'd driven aimlessly for hours to ensure no one was following her before returning to the motel where Lily waited. Now, as the lock clicked open, her heart pounded against her ribs. Inside lay a rose gold iPhone, Diana's distinctive phone case still intact, though dusty. Sarah had teased her about the gaudy rhinestones once. Next to it sat a handwritten note. "The password is Lily's birth date and the day we met. You'll know it, Sarah." She did. Diana had always said meeting Sarah at that charity gala was the moment she truly became part of the Chen family. Her fingers shook as she typed in the numbers. The phone came to life, its battery mysteriously full. A single app was left on the home screen: Photos. Sarah opened it to find dozens of video files, each labeled with a date. She pressed play on the first one. Diana's face filled the screen, younger and happier. "Day 1 of evidence collection," she whispered. "Marcus doesn't know I installed cameras in his office. If I'm right about the orphanage funds." Sarah swiped through videos spanning months. Diana's demeanor changed gradually, from determined to worried, then terrified. The final video was dated the day before her accident. "Sarah, if you're watching this." Diana's face was tear-streaked, her usually perfect makeup smeared. The hotel room behind her was dim. "I'm either dead or they made it look that way. Everything, it's all been a lie. The charity foundation, the orphanage funds. Marcus isn't who we thought he was." A noise made Diana jump. She continued faster, her voice shaking. The orphanages don't exist. They're shells. Fronts for something bigger. I found the real ledgers. Your brother, he's working with... The sound of breaking glass interrupted her. Diana's eyes widened in terror. They're here. Oh God. They found. The screen went black. Sarah stared at the blank phone, her blood running cold. A new file caught her eye, uploaded the day after Diana's death. With trembling fingers, she pressed play. The video showed security footage of a parking garage. Diana ran into frame, looking over her shoulder. A man followed. Marcus. He grabbed her arm. They struggled, and then the video cut out. Oh my God, Lily whispered. Sarah hadn't heard her enter the room. Mom. She knew something was going to happen to her. Before Sarah could respond, both their phones chimed simultaneously. The message contained a single image, the safety deposit box they'd just opened, timestamped 5 minutes ago. Below it, text appeared. You're playing a dangerous game, Sarah. Some boxes should stay locked. For Lily's sake, stop now. Through the motel window, a familiar black SUV pulled into the parking lot. The Ritz-Carlton ballroom sparkled with crystal chandeliers and old money. Sarah adjusted her borrowed evening gown, her fingers brushing Diana's phone in her clutch, now her most dangerous possession. Using Mrs. Wong's security footage, she'd traced a pattern of late-night meetings between Marcus and Judge Harrison at charity galas like this one. Champagne, madam. A server appeared at her elbow. Sarah took a glass, using it to hide her face as Marcus entered with Police Chief Rodriguez and Judge Harrison. The three men moved to a quiet corner, their forced smiles dropping as soon as they thought no one was watching. She circled closer, Diana's phone recording in her purse. The feds are closing in, Rodriguez muttered. Zhang's death bought us time, but we need to clean house. Marcus sipped his scotch. What about the Diana situation? Your sister's getting too close, Harrison said, and now with Lily in the wind. I'll handle The Chen family orphanage stood at the edge of town, its charred skeleton, a stark contrast to the pristine photos in Marcus's promotional materials. Sarah parked a block away, watching maintenance workers clear debris from what remained of the East Wing. After rushing Lily to a friend's safe house, she had to know the truth about Diana's claims. You shouldn't be here. The voice made her jump. An elderly woman in a janitor's uniform stood beside her car, keys jingling at her hip. Mrs. Chen's accident wasn't an accident, was it? You knew Diana? Sarah's pulse quickened. The woman, her name tag read Mrs. Wong, glanced nervously over her shoulder. 20 years here, I cleaned every office, including the one with the hidden safe. She lowered her voice. 3 nights before the fire, Mrs. Chen was here late. She found something in Mr. Chen's computer. Next day, she came back with a camera. Day after that, she drew a finger across her throat. The fire, Sarah whispered. Mrs. Wong pulled a USB drive from her pocket. Security cameras didn't burn. I made a copy before they took the originals. But you didn't get this from me. I have grandchildren. Sarah clutched the drive, her mind racing. Why help me now? Because last week, someone broke in and accessed Mr. Chen's old office. The safe was already empty, but they were looking for something else. Mrs. Wong's hands trembled. The same black SUV that followed Mrs. Chen the night A car door slammed nearby. Mrs. Wong disappeared into the shadows as 2 men in suits emerged from around the corner, walking purposefully to the digital clock on Sarah's nightstand blinked 3:17 a.m. when the knocking started. At first, she thought it was part of her dream. She'd been reliving the scene with Marcus and the burning envelope over and over, but the soft, desperate tapping persisted. Sarah grabbed her phone, finger hovering over the emergency call button as she approached her apartment door. Through the peephole, she saw a teenage girl huddled in the dimly lit hallway, shoulders shaking. Who is it? Sarah called, though something about the girl's silhouette seemed familiar. Aunt Sarah, please. The voice was barely a whisper. It's Lily. Sarah's hands fumbled with the locks. Lily, Diana's daughter, Marcus's stepdaughter, stood there drenched from the rain, mascara running down her cheeks. The 16-year-old looked like she'd aged years since Sarah had last seen her at the funeral. "Oh my God, Lily, come in." Sarah ushered her inside, grabbing a throw blanket from the couch. "Does your father know you're here?" Lily's stepfather had gotten custody after Diana's accident. She shook her head, pulling out her phone with trembling hands. "I had to show you something. Dad's been acting weird, and then these started coming." She pulled up her messages. The first photo showed Diana in a red dress, reading a newspaper. The timestamp read 2 days ago. The next showed her at a cafe, sipping coffee. Yesterday's date. "This is impossible," Sarah whispered, but she knew that profile, that distinctive way Diana tucked her hair behind her ear. "Your mom didn't die in that car crash," Lily finished, her voice cracking. "Someone's been sending these to me for the past week. No messages, just photos. I thought I was going crazy until..." A car engine rumbled outside. They both turned to the window as a black SUV with tinted windows cruised past Sarah's building, moving slowly enough to make her skin crawl. Lily's phone buzzed in her hands. New message. "You shouldn't have told her." The color drained from Lily's face. "They followed me. Oh God, they followed me here." Sarah pulled her away from the window, mind racing. The envelope, Marcus's strange behavior. And now these photos. It was all connected. But how? "When did the messages start?" Sarah asked, already grabbing her keys and an overnight bag. "The day after I overheard Dad talking about some insurance policy. He was arguing with someone on the phone about maintaining the story and keeping payments going too." Lily stopped, her eyes widening as headlights swept across the apartment walls. The SUV was back. Sarah grabbed Lily's hand. "We're leaving. Now." Through the back stairs. As they slipped out the emergency exit, Sarah's phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. "Like mother, like daughter. Some secrets should stay buried." After a sleepless night at a motel with Lily, Sarah waited until the bank opened at 9 a.m. sharp. First Western Bank's marble lobby felt too bright, too normal for the darkness brewing in her life. Her old college friend, Michael Zhang, had worked here for 15 years. If anyone could help her understand Marcus's finances, it would be him. "Sorry, running late." Michael called from across the lobby, his usual cheerful demeanor absent. He looked stressed, his tie slightly askew. "Give me 5 minutes?" Sarah nodded, sinking into one of the leather chairs near the executive offices. Through the thin walls, voices carried from the adjacent room. The Chen family payout was unprecedented. A man's voice said, $5 million in life insurance for a woman who'd been divorced from him. "Keep your voice down," another man responded. The chief of police himself signed off on the accident report. "It's not our place to." The door opened, and 2 men in expensive suits emerged, falling silent at the sight of Sarah. She pretended to be absorbed in her phone, but her hands were shaking. $5 million. Marcus had never mentioned an insurance payout. Michael appeared at her elbow, startling her. "We need to talk privately," he whispered, leading her to a small conference room. Once inside, he closed the blinds. "Sarah, you shouldn't be here," he said, his voice barely audible. "They're watching all Chen family account inquiries." "Who's watching?" Michael wiped sweat from his forehead. "Last week, 2 federal agents came asking questions about Marcus's accounts. Yesterday, different agents, or people claiming to be agents, demanded copies of all his transactions. Something big is happening." He pulled up records on his tablet, hands trembling slightly. "Look at this. 3 weeks before Diana's accident, Marcus took out a massive life insurance policy on her. The beneficiary wasn't even him. It was some offshore corporation. The payout cleared in record time, no questions asked." Sarah's mouth went dry. But they were already divorced. Exactly. And there's more. Large withdrawals from the orphanage foundation, wire transfers to numbered accounts, all following a pattern that... The conference room door opened. A security guard stood there, accompanied by 2 men in dark suits. "Mr. Zhang," one suit said, "you're needed upstairs." Michael's face went pale. Quickly, he slipped something into Sarah's purse, a small key with a dragon emblem. Safety deposit box 447, he whispered. Don't trust anyone. Get out of here, now. As Sarah walked rapidly toward the exit, she heard Michael's raised voice. You can't do this. I have rights. She forced herself not to run, even as she heard the click of dress shoes behind her. Just before the door, she risked a glance back. The men in suits were watching her, speaking into their earpieces. In her purse, her phone buzzed with a text from Lily. Dad knows I'm with you. He's coming. The abandoned paper mill loomed against the midnight sky, its broken windows like vacant eyes. Sarah killed her headlights, thinking of Kevin. After the gunshots, she'd fled the Ritz through a service entrance. Her phone had buzzed with a single text from his burner. Made it out. Still on for midnight. Now, clutching Diana's phone and the USB drive from Mrs. Wong, she approached the mill's rusted side door. It opened before she could knock. Quick, Kevin whispered, ushering her inside. His arm was bandaged, but he was alive. They're right behind me. They hurried through dark corridors, their footsteps echoing on metal catwalks. Below, ancient machinery cast strange shadows. Kevin led her to what looked like an old foreman's office, tapped a complex pattern on the door. It swung open to reveal a high-tech command center humming with surveillance equipment. And there, illuminated by monitor screens, stood Diana. Sarah. Diana's voice cracked as they embraced. She looked different, hair shorter, dyed dark, but her eyes were the same. I'm so sorry for everything. Mom. Lily emerged from a back room, tears streaming down her face as she ran to Diana. As mother and daughter reunited, Kevin brought up security feeds on the main screen. We don't have much time. Diana's been working with us to map the entire operation. The orphanage was just the beginning. Diana pulled away from Lily, wiping her eyes. Marcus and his friends have been using my charity foundation to launder money for years. Politicians, judges, police, they're all involved. The orphanages never existed. The buildings were empty shells used to justify millions in donations that went straight to offshore accounts. But why fake your death? Sarah asked. Because I found proof of something worse. Diana's hands shook as she typed on a laptop. They weren't just laundering money. They were trafficking children through the fake orphanage network. When I discovered the truth, alarms blared. Kevin's phone lit up with alerts. Multiple vehicles approaching, he said, checking the feeds. They found us. Marcus is leading them. Take this. Diana thrust a hard drive into Sarah's hands. Everything's here. Account numbers, surveillance footage, emails. Enough to bring down the entire operation. You're not coming. We'll follow another route, Kevin said, opening a hidden door in the floor. Underground tunnels lead to the river. Get that drive to FBI Special Agent Torres at the field office. Only Torres. More alarms. The sound of vehicles screeching to a halt outside. Sarah, run. Diana pushed her toward the exit. We'll hold them off. But keep Lily safe, Diana pleaded. I'll find you both when this is over. Sarah clutched the drive and ran as footsteps thundered up the metal stairs. Behind her, she heard Marcus's voice. Check every room. Find that drive. A gunshot echoed through the mill. Then another. And another.